Greetings and welcome everyone to another wonderful episode of Friday with Friends. And today's friend, hi friend, Deborah Thompson. Looks good it's so good to see you. And just seeing your face reminds me of today's title. And today's title is Tolerance, the Shortcut to Happiness. Or maybe it's the other way around. We don't know yet. So for most people, I would say that they don't put the word tolerance and happiness together in the same equation. That one seems to be different than the other. And since I told you what this, the theme would be of today's talk the other day, I'm sure you've had a chance to think about it. And first impressions, how in the world is tolerance a shortcut to happiness?
Okay, so, I was thinking of it. And I thought of a story. I thought of when I was a marathon runner. I don't know if you've ever run a marathon, but it's 26.2 miles. And I know in training, I wore a shirt that says, "Don't wanna." Every day, 5 days a week, 5 miles, and then a long run and a day off. So that's how it went. And I didn't want to, and it had a big tongue sticking out, but I did it because I wanted to see what I wanted to accomplish this. I was determined to do it. And on the day of the marathon, the hardest thing is your feet, your mental. You've got this mind going, what am I doing? Why am I here? Oh, my feet are already hurting me and I'm only at mile 5 or whatever. And you don't see smiles on the run. You see frowny faces. It's intense. It's hard. So I decided I was going to have fun. And also I took a thought of the day and I wrote it on a piece of paper and I tucked it in my pants. So, because you can't really carry anything. So I tucked it there and I would occasionally pull it out and read it when I was having a rough spot, and it would give me something to think about for the next ways. I would be churning on this point of knowledge or just an uplifting thought. Well, as I was running, I did come to about mile 5 or 6, and there was this guy walking. And his shoulders were slumped and his face was frowning. I can see him from way back here, and I'm coming on and I thought, I'm going to try to uplift him. So I tapped on his sweaty shoulder and I looked at his face with a smile. I go, hey, keep up the good work. Go for it. And he gave me the most beautiful smile. And that smile in my eyes kept me going for a good half hour. I had that image in my eyes and it made it so easy. And then I'd see someone else ahead. And, when I was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I was a cheerleader. So I did this for 26.2 miles. I would find people, tap them on their shoulder. Hey, keep going. You're doing great, or whatever I'd say. I don't even know. But, and they would give me that smile back. And that made the load a shortcut for me. And plus that quote in my little tucked in my pants, that made a shortcut, that positive thinking thought going on, and those smiles kept me going. It made it so much easier. Anyway, that's a marathon run.
Well, and isn't life more like a marathon run than it is a 100-yard dash? It's one thing after another, and tolerance is something I need for the rough spots, but you just keyed on something that I've been mulling on, is that tolerance is more than just getting by a situation or getting through a situation. It's adding something to the situation that hasn't been in there. And in your description, that's just what you did. If you were isolated and alone, like everyone else, when they're having that experience, when you're feeling your shoulders are stooped and your head's down, you're isolated and alone. And you were basically the cheerleader again, and just letting people know you're adding something to it. So maybe it's happiness that enables tolerance to take place. Or what I see from you is, I'll give you another thing to mull on. I don't even see tolerance. I don't see you using tolerance as a tool, because you're not focused on that which you're overcoming. You're focused on that which you want to do.
Good one.
Well,
So,
how do you respond to that?
well, I was thinking of this time, there was this thing about, it said something about courage, and courage helps you become tolerant, or something of that nature. And I was thinking about this time when I was in the hospital, and I was too afraid. I was paralyzed at the time, absolutely. And I was too afraid to be alone at night in the pitch dark hospital at night. I had to every night. But when you live with someone, when you live in a hospital for 2 months, after a while, it's hard to get someone to stay with you. You can't be that selective. People get burnt out. And so my mother wanted to stay with me, and I didn't trust my mother very much, hardly at all. Growing up as a child, she was pretty physically abusive, being the oldest of 9 children and like that. So I didn't trust her, but I needed someone, and she was eager. She eagerly wanted to stay with me every night. And finally this night I go, Mom, will you please come stay with me? Oh, yeah, I'll be over, in 20 minutes or however long it took her. And she came and spent the night with me. But I will tell you, because I didn't really have the opportunity to have a good relationship with my mother, the motherly figure in my life, but I will tell you that my mother and I stayed up all night almost talking. We had the best conversation of my entire life, of my whole life, in one night. And it just really bonded me to my mom. I was so thankful that I had that privilege and opportunity to spend those hours with my mother. Just another.
Well, so the situation was dire enough that, not wanting to be alone, that normally you might not be tolerant of spending that time with your mother, but the situation itself created the environment for you to do that. And so again, that gives me the lesson that don't be afraid of the situations that come up, because it's going to sound really cheesy. There's a gift in there somewhere, that the obstacle is really what I'm afraid of, is really the means of me receiving the gift that I don't yet realize. And it's just what you said just now, that you had the best conversation with your mother of your entire life because of being in that hospital for 2 months. So you wouldn't put those things together.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You have something to say.
Well, it's another little story that I was thinking of when I was studying what we were going to be talking about. And I thought of when I was a new BK, when I came to this philosophy, and I was studying, but I found it in Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya. And from April till February of the following year, I lived a BK life. And I lived in centers, and I did global cooperation for a better world. And I did all these things. And I had found all the answers in my whole life of questions. And here I found everything I'd been looking for. And I came back to America on my birthday, February 24th, and I'm a different person now. The oldest of the 9 children, I just flowed with my family, and I enjoyed every minute being with my family. Well, I no longer drank alcohol. I no longer ate fish. I used to fish all the time, fish or eggs. I didn't do that. And I also, my clothing became a little bit more modest. So my family, especially my dad, was not very accepting, and I felt highly rejected, and it hurt my heart. And I didn't know what to do. And it kept going on, the insults and the teasing. Deborah, you want a fifth with some, I mean, just the teasing of and it was really hard for me. And so it was so hard to be rejected from my family that I thought, well, maybe I should quit. So one day I looked over my shoulder. I mean, really, I looked over my shoulder and I looked at that life again, just for a glance, because I was like, this is really hard. And I looked over and I go, forget it. I can't do it. I have found this is my way of life now. And I can use this as an example. When I go shopping, I want to get the best thing, not the most expensive, but the best quality when I buy. And when I found this university, I found the highest quality, the best quality I could find on all the earth, everything I had explored. I could not turn back to my old life. So I just had to endure those insults and comments and rejections. And now I'm part of the family again, kind of, from a different perspective.
Well, it shows me that you can't just, I think that when most people think of the word tolerance or to tolerate, is kind of like an endurance, more like the marathon you're talking, and you're suffering quietly. But what you're sharing is not that at all, that the reason that you're able to show what other people would call tolerance is because you have fullness already. And you're not dependent upon their approval of you to find your own identity. You found your identity that you literally searched the world over. You searched the world over and found what it was. And so it would be silly to turn your back on it. So in reality, tolerance is not allowing myself to be so sensitive in the way where I'm weak, or that I'm affected or put off by something that happens, because you've been through some things that most people would not be able to tolerate, yet at that same time where you never feel sorrow from this anymore, you might have sorrow that someone didn't treat you with respect, or something went the wrong way. It's like little tiny things that seem to get in our way, and it's because we forget. So for me, when I hear tolerance, when I don't have tolerance, is I'm forgetting what I already have. I'm like the queen that's looking for the tiara that's on her head. One other point I want to bring up to you, and I find that something I read about tolerance being related to reducing expansion and into its essence. What does that mean exactly, reducing expansion into essence?
Well, like in the marathon, you can just keep rattling in my mind, this, and expand and talk and think about it. Oh, woe is me, and just keep going and going and going. And then you become tired and exhausted because you've expended all your energy just expanding it instead of becoming an essence about it, instead of just making a pinpoint.
I even like that in punctuation. I always say it's a matter of punctuation. And then here in America, we use the punctuation called a period. But in England, they use the term full stop. And it's just a dot. So you have a sentence and then you put a full stop. You don't put a comma, you don't put dot, 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 and especially you don't put a question mark. Like, why did he say that about me? And if you even think about it, the shape of a question mark is a hook. And so one hooks on to the next, and you start one question, it's just a line of questions, and pretty soon I'm exhausted by that expansion of questions instead of just putting a full stop to it.
Or fears, fears can just go wild.
I think that's the biggest question of all, is fear is uncertainty. A full stop is definite. You read your thought of the day, full stop. You didn't at the expense of all other thoughts that were unnecessary for your journey. So it's really being wise to have tolerance is wisdom, because you're making the choice for your benefit and for the benefit of others. Not that a lot of times I say I'm not tolerant because I want them to understand how I feel, or I just want justice, or I give it some other name like that. It really means I'm not satisfied and I don't know how to handle the situation. And I'd rather win the argument than be happy. When a tolerant person realizes there is no argument, the conflict takes two people. If one person is in conflict and one person gave up the conflict, there's no more conflict.
Yes, that's true. And then also, like with my mother, being afraid of her, I just went with her through her death, her leaving Earth and all that. And it was so beautiful. I wasn't afraid at all. And I could be in my mother's company and be be an example around my brothers and sisters, and unafraid of my mother, and talking with her and helping her go through what she needed. It was a beautiful experience, actually.
What enables you to do that? What enabled you to be able to do that? See, other people, they would like to do that, but they don't find themselves able to do it, like emotionally, so to speak. What enables you to be there and go through the situation and not deny the situation, but to embrace the situation?
Oh, well, I think just having knowledge really helps for me, knowing that her soul is going to leave the body, but it's eternal. It's going to live on. And so in the meantime, but she's ready to go. And so I want to encourage her not to be afraid. It's not going to hurt you one bit, Mama. And also, and it's very fast, and there's not one thing scary about it. It's a beautiful thing. She just leaves her soul. Her soul just leaves the body, and then you have her body there. And she was 91 years old, and it was her time. We had till the last minute of her life. We filled her up. She loved exploring and adventures, so we took her out when she had the death rattle going on. Do y'all know what that means? At the end, it's this loud breathing. And we took her on an adventure. We took her to Mass. She got her last rites blessing. We walked several blocks with her in the wheelchair, pillows holding her up, to Captain Cook Monument, one of the world's greatest explorers. And I think my mother was one of America's greatest explorers. She drove all the way to Alaska with 15-year-old twins, my twin brothers, and has lived there for 30-something years now. And so, Mama, it's okay. You can go. I mean, it was the most beautiful. And she was born in New Orleans, so we got a trumpet player to play "Oh, When the Saints" at the end of the Mass, and I thought it was beautiful myself.
Well, see, again, tolerance is not just getting through a situation, but it's bringing a solution to the situation where if you just say death and death rattle, you don't think, let's play the trumpet and let's really enjoy Captain Cook. But it can be all of that, just depending on where I'm coming from internally. And your tolerance does more than just help you. It helps everyone who is present, because you're radiating an energy that reduces all the unnecessary noise. See, I can talk about what it is, but you actually have done it. So it's really doing it that's what people want to know. They want to know, how do these things work in real life, not as a philosophy, but as something. How does it help me when I'm afraid? And I guess you touched on that already. It's reassuring and taking fear away. The guy that's in the marathon, he's afraid too. He's afraid of not being good enough, afraid of breaking down, whatever the fears are.
Do you have time for one more story, or?
Yes, you have time for one more story.
Okay, so this one, it's a situation that people, you don't want to go through it, but it happened one day. I was at the American Red Cross in Jacksonville. I live here and I traveled up for the week, and I was going to do something special. So I had my power wheelchair on the back of the car, and I had all my therapy gear for the whole week and the groceries in the car, everything. And I went to the Red Cross. I'm a nurse, and I went there for a training. And about 8:00 at night, it was finished. And I go outside, and my car is missing. The Jeep, the power wheelchair, all the groceries, all the therapy, everything was stolen. And so at first I was like, I told the nurse, the supervisor, I go, my car is gone. And we called the police, and he came. And at first, I mean, I wasn't, it was just happening, and I was just going with the flow. It's kind of a numbing thing all of a sudden, but I'm going along, and then I said something to the police, like, you'll check this out, right? And he said something, I could tell that I made him defensive. Look, miss, I've done this job for many a year, and so I thought, okay. So he became my best friend. He was right in my face, right there, asking me everything. We did all the paperwork, and I just sent him more loving vibrations the whole time. And inside of me, about the vehicle and the possessions, the physical, I knew that I was going to be taken care of. No problem. Everything will happen, and it's going to be okay. And it was. I was in the news like 2 or 3 times. Some organization got me a wheelchair. Somebody else loaned me a vehicle. Another organization gave me a couple $100 for food. The police officer was awarded, and like I said, we became very good. The whole situation could have been just like, society and rattle, but it was so peaceful, and it wasn't bad at all.
Well, it's based upon what you had inside, and I see more and more now that you're really proving it to me, that tolerance is not a shield. Tolerance is a loving energy within the self, a fullness of self that allows you to get through that situation. If you don't have that, you can't get through the situation. You're desperate, and you need people to behave in a certain way. And then when they don't behave in that way, then I have a conflict, and the situation's even worse. You could have had a conflict with that policeman, and it could have been much less pleasant than it was. But yeah. You had the wisdom to recognize what that situation needed and gave it to him. You didn't say, hey, look at me, my situation's worse, you should be listening to me, I'm the victim here, because that only makes sense to you, but everyone has their own story. Some people can't take if he thinks you don't respect him, it's over. It's over.
Yeah.
And so your knowledge, as you said, what does it? I asked you what did it? You said knowledge. That's the knowledge that you had. You recognize the value of what the situation, and it's in your best interest as well to get through this friendly. To get through it friendly.
And then the outcome of it, the van that was loaned to me, I ended up buying it for $500, and it lasted me for several years until one day it died, and it would cost more to have it fixed.
Yes.
So no one even expected it to live, but the community did a fundraiser, and I bought another Jeep and have a lift on the back of it. Through that fundraiser, I paid cash. Just the blessings kept coming and coming.
It's all due to what you had inside of you at that moment. See, so it's really that I want to change the title now. It's not tolerance is a shortcut to happiness, but happiness is what empowers you to have tolerance. It's your own internal happiness. Everything you've mentioned has to do with your happiness, that you had enough inside of you that you didn't need someone else to behave in a certain way. I think we've used all our time that we have.
Yes.
So generally at this point, I would ask you to take us for like a 2 or 3 minute meditation or a commentary that kind of encapsulates what we have into an essence. So if you would.
So sit comfortably for a moment and think about, no matter how big an obstacle is in your life, it could be a mountain and it's staring at you and you need to take care of it. So think of it as a toy. This is something fun that you're going to play with, and make it into like a little ball or something small, and go for that mountain. Have faith and courage, and know that you can handle it. You can walk right through it, put a smile on your face, and go into it with peace and calm. Get yourself ready, be peaceful and calm, and walk into it. And feel it. And watch how easy it becomes. And like Craig said, put a full stop to all the rattle and the chatter and the noise in your head, just talking and talking. Oh, this burden, this problem. Oh, and put a full stop. Stop. That's the end. Now let's go back to being peaceful and comfortable, and feel that peace and comfort, and put that smile on your face, and walk in there and go for that challenge in an easy way, in an easy manner, and watch. It will be a shortcut. You'll have energy. You'll be full of life, and it'll happen in very quick. It won't take very long to do it. It'll just happen. Go through it, all the little curves you need to take, go through it. And your boat, you and your obstacle will sail across beautifully and peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. I think I got it. It actually works. And I was even thinking as you were talking about that ball, that then say, well, some of the things I don't know how they're going to turn out, but that one's in the air. Like I learned how to juggle. So there's always one in the air, and it's fun to do it. It's not scary. It's fun to do it. So Deborah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And your presence brought something fresh. I'm very happy that you were here with us today. So I'll say goodbye. Om Shanti. And we'll see you next time on Friday with Friends. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.